Welcome to Western Auto's Engine Electrical Component Testing Program. This presentation provides a review of the battery starting and charging systems and how to use equipment to test starting and charging system components. Along the way, we will also give you some tips on how to improve customer satisfaction and sales. However, before we get into component testing and customer service, let's review the heart of the starting and charging system, the Delco maintenance-free battery.
Charging and testing Delco Freedom batteries. To understand why all Freedoms can be charged and tested, let's briefly look at the makeup of a battery. Any battery, passenger car or heavy duty. A battery is a chemical device with lead plates and lead dioxide plates immersed in a sulfuric acid solution. Simply stated, a battery chemically produces voltage, and when connected to a load, current, measured in amperes, is produced. When the battery is supplying current to an electrical load, such as a starter motor, it is said to be discharging. As a result of chemical reactions inside the battery cells, amperes flow out of the battery positive terminal, through the starter motor, and then through the ground cable back to the battery negative terminal. The battery contains a limited amount of energy. It cannot, therefore, supply current indefinitely. Eventually, the chemical reactions stop and the battery no longer can supply current. When this happens, the battery is said to be discharged. But because of its chemical nature, it can be recharged and restored to a charged condition, so that it again can supply sufficient current to the starter motor and to other electrical accessories such as headlights, radios, and onboard computers. Charging is accomplished simply by forcing a current through the battery in a direction opposite to the direction of current during discharge. Normally, the vehicle's alternator satisfactorily keeps the battery in a charged-up condition. If for any reason the battery is not kept charged up, jump-starting a vehicle may start it, but it will not necessarily aid in recharging the discharged battery. How do you know when the battery needs to be charged? If the battery is discharged to the point where it will not crank the engine, an external charger is needed to restore the battery to full state of charge. If the starter cranks the engine slowly, the battery may also need to be charged and or tested to determine if the battery is the culprit. Determining what caused the battery to become discharged to a non-operating level will also be necessary. A battery might become discharged for a number of reasons, including excessive cranking, such as repeated attempts to start the engine without success. Parasitic loads, such as electronic devices that are always connected to the battery in the vehicle. A bulb or other load that remains on due to a switch being left on. A charging system which is producing no or insufficient output caused by internal defects, slipping belts, or added excessive loads. Self-discharging. All batteries self-discharge over a period of months, even though no electrical loads are connected to the battery. This can occur in storage or when the vehicle is not being used. Once we've determined the battery is discharged and the reason for discharge, we are ready to recharge it. What's important is that the charger can charge the battery at a sufficient rate in amperes for a sufficient length of time. Let's look at some precautions to take before we hook up our charger. Remember, batteries generate hydrogen gas, which is highly explosive. Keep sparks and flames away from batteries. Work in a well-ventilated area, and keep water available to flush acid in case of bodily contact. Prior to charging the battery, observe the following steps. Number 1, visually inspect the battery for damage that would affect performance. Number 2, replace the battery if it is damaged. Number 3, if the battery is in the vehicle, check for secure mounting and for cable tightness on the battery terminals. The next thing to do is to inspect the hydrometer in the battery cover. To achieve a correct reading, tap the hydrometer lightly to dislodge any gas bubbles that may be causing a false clear or light yellow appearance. If a green dot is visible, the battery is ready for testing, and there is no need for charging. If there is a dark appearance, the battery must be charged before it can be tested. If a clear or light yellow appearance remains, replace the battery. Do not charge or test it. Keep in mind that it is not necessary to periodically check the hydrometer. It is only necessary to look at the hydrometer when there is a cranking complaint. On some batteries, the reserve capacity, or RC rating in minutes, is located on the label. If this rating is not on the label, refer to test specification sheets. This number can be used as a guide to judge how many ampere hours must be put into a completely discharged battery to restore it to a full state of charge. Typically, a passenger car battery has an RC rating of approximately 80 minutes. This means at least 80 ampere hours must be put into a completely discharged battery to restore it to a full state of charge. Now, connect a digital voltmeter or accurate scale voltmeter to read the battery open circuit voltage. If the reading is less than 11 volts, it may take several hours after charging is started for the ammeter on the charger to show any charge to the battery. Keep this voltage reading in mind or jot it down on paper. Now, let's hook up the charger. In the case of side terminals, use adapters which will put the clamps in contact with the lead pads. We recommend the use of AC Delco Adapter Kit ST1201. Being in contact with the lead pads will decrease the amount of charging time by increasing the amount of current that will flow through the battery. If the battery is in the vehicle, the cables will need to be removed before the adapters can be secured. Now, turn the charger on the high rate setting and observe the charge rate to the battery. The charge rate we get is determined by 3 major factors. 1, the 110-volt charger and its charging capabilities. Different chargers may provide widely different charging rates. 2, the temperature of the battery. Temperature has a drastic effect on both charging and discharging. 3, the state of charge of the battery. If we're getting no charge rate at all, as shown on the ammeter, this could be due to the charger. Some chargers have a built-in polarity protection device that registers a reverse connection and turns itself off when it cannot sense at least 8 volts. If an extremely discharged battery is hooked up in parallel with a good battery, the voltage goes up and allows the charger to turn on, forcing current back into the battery and overriding the polarity protection device. Many chargers have an override system which must be followed to start the charging process. Check this feature on your charger. In any case, being unable to obtain a charge rate does not mean the battery will not take a charge or that the battery is bad. Do not condemn this battery yet. Let's give it a chance to prove itself. Connect a voltmeter across the battery while it is connected to the charger. If the voltage is 16 volts or above, it may take 4 hours before the charge indicator will show any charge rate to the battery. If below 16 volts, as many as 8 to 16 hours may be required before charging is noted on the indicator. This condition of no charge may occur especially on batteries that have been completely discharged with open circuit voltage readings below 11 volts. The apparent no charge is normal. The battery most likely will slowly begin to accept a charge after 4 to 16 hours on the charger. With this type of completely discharged battery, the charger may require from 4 to 16 hours just to get the charging process started. This will almost always be the case on batteries that have really been run down. These batteries may have open circuit voltages as low as 2 or 3 volts, but they can almost always be recharged. Now let's consider the case where the charging starts immediately, and let's say the charge rate is an average of 40 amperes. With an RC rating of 80 minutes, this means 2 or more hours are needed to charge this battery. If the charge rate is an average of 10 amperes, then 8 hours or more are needed to recharge this completely discharged battery. Once charging has begun, the hydrometer tells us when it can be stopped. During the charging process, the hydrometer should be observed about every 30 minutes and lightly tapped, which may cause the green dot to immediately appear. After tapping the hydrometer and the green dot stays in view, there is no need for further charging, no matter how many ampere hours have been put into the battery. The battery is ready for testing to determine if it is good or bad.
We'll begin this program with a demonstration of how to test a battery using the SBT battery tester. The SBT is a computerized tester designed to test 12-volt batteries ranging from 150 to 1,000 CCAs. Before connecting the tester, always check the battery case for cracks or damage. Also check the battery terminals for damage. If the case or terminals are damaged, recommend the battery be replaced. In this case, the battery is in good condition, so we'll go on with the test. Begin by pressing the power on key. Then press the go key. This activates the test program. Now hook up the tester to the battery. Connect the large red tester lead to the positive terminal of the battery. Wiggle the test lead to make sure you've got good contact between the lead and the terminal. Connect the black tester lead to the negative terminal in the same way. On batteries such as this, with side terminals, install adapters. Then hook up the test leads. After you've connected the leads, check the top of the battery for the label that lists the CCA rating for the battery. You can also use the catalog to determine what CCA is required for the vehicle. Enter the correct CCA rating into the tester. If you enter the wrong CCA rating, press the clear key and enter the correct CCA rating. When the CCA rating is entered, press the go key to start the test. The test doesn't last much longer than 20 seconds. During that time, you'll hear the tester click a few times as the test is being performed. When the test is complete, the tester displays the results. Good means that the battery can be returned to service. If a customer's battery tests good, it is very possible that he's having a problem with his vehicle. The customer may be open to suggestions. Don't be too blunt. First, be sure to tell the customer that the battery is good. Show that you care about his problem by asking if he or she is having any problems with their car. Then offer some suggestions. This is a good time to recommend that a starting and charging system analysis be performed by our service department. On the other hand, if the battery test results show good low charge, inform the customer that his battery is good but needs to be charged. When the battery is good but not fully charged, the charging system and related components should be tested. Offer some suggestions to the customer. Ask if the drive belt is loose, worn, or glazed. Recommend that Western Auto perform a comprehensive analysis of the charging system. When the tester results show a bad battery, the battery must be replaced. This is your opportunity to sell a battery and recommend service. Explain the benefits of owning a Delco maintenance-free or Tough One battery and sell your customer a new battery. Also suggest that our service department check for a parasitic load and perform a complete starting and charging system check on the customer's vehicle. Explain to the customer that this check will help protect his investment in the new battery and eliminate any concerns about the condition of the electrical system. When the test results show charge retest, it means that the battery is too discharged to make an accurate determination of its condition. The battery must be charged before an accurate test can be performed. It may take several hours to properly charge a battery that is in this condition. Your customer will probably not have the time to wait for the battery to become fully charged. If a customer's battery is too discharged to test, offer some options. Suggest that a systems test be performed on the vehicle. If the battery is very old, recommend a new battery. Remember, an old battery may not pass the test even after it has been charged. Suggest that the battery be left until it can be properly charged and retested. If necessary, you can offer a Western Auto loaner battery while the customer's unit is being charged and tested. As a service to your customer, you should recommend that he have his electrical system analyzed by one of the trained technicians in our service department. Well, that's about all there is to battery testing. Actually, the tester does most of the work. It even tells you what is wrong with the battery. You can't go wrong if you follow the test procedures we just covered. However, if you do have any problems, follow the step-by-step instructions on the front of the SBT tester. So far, we've discussed testing and satisfying the needs of the customers who have battery problems. But what about the customer who brings in an alternator and wants to know if it is any good? Or the customer who thinks they have a bad starter motor and wants it checked out? For these customers, Western Auto has provided the Mini-Tune Analyzer, or MT Analyzer for short. This tester can test alternators and starters quickly and accurately. Let's say that one of your customers brings in a starter and wants it checked out. The first thing to do is visually inspect the starter. Look for obvious physical damage. Inspect the pinion gear for milled or broken teeth. If the starter passes the visual inspection, install it in the Mini-Tune tester and tighten the vise. Make sure you tighten the vise enough to securely hold the starter. Now, if you're not sure how to hook up the test leads or how to perform the test, refer to these two books. The Operation Instruction Manual contains all the instructions for setup, use, and maintenance of the Mini-Tune tester. The Quick Connection Charts book covers the hookup, test procedure, and specifications for starters and alternators. Let's find out how to hook up the test leads to a Ford starter motor. Here it is, Typical Starter Connections, right on page 1. Here is the Ford starter motor. It says that all you have to do is connect the large red battery clamp to the starter terminal and the large black clamp to the starter housing. So let's do it. When you connect the large red lead to the starter terminal, wiggle it to make sure you've got a good connection. Now connect the large black lead to a good ground. The small red and black leads can be connected to the like-colored larger leads to keep them out of the way and prevent them from shorting. With the leads connected, all you have to do to test the starter is push this starter switch. The starter is now free spinning. Notice the amp meter reading. Continue holding the starter switch until the meter needle stabilizes. Then take the reading. Compare the free spin reading from the test to the specifications. The specification chart lists the free spin amperage between 55 and 105 amps. This starter tests okay. Worn-out starters have internal problems that can cause the free spin amperage to be out of specification. Recommend starter replacement if your customer's starter motor doesn't test within specifications. Some defects in starters will peg the amp meter during the free spin test. If this happens, do not repeat the test. Reject the starter. To hook up a GM starter, connect the large red test lead to the battery terminal on the starter solenoid. Connect the small red lead to the S terminal on the solenoid. Connect the large black lead to ground and the small black lead to the large black lead. To test a Chrysler starter motor, hook the large red lead to the battery terminal on the starter and the small red lead to the ignition terminal. Next, connect the small black lead to the large black lead. Then hook the large black lead to the starter case or a good ground. That's all there is to starter hookup and testing. The procedure is quick and easy. But remember, you must compare your free spin amp meter readings to specifications before condemning a starter. If the starter tests out good, suggest that the customer bring his car in for a checkup by our technicians. Chances are that he has a problem that requires some diagnosis. Talk to your customer. Let your customer know that you care and that you want to help. If the problem seems complicated, recommend that the service department diagnose the problem. Your customer will appreciate your efforts and will more than likely return to your store again and again. Now let's talk about alternator testing. Your customer will bring in many different shapes and sizes of alternators for you to test. But don't worry, you won't have any problems testing them with the MT tester. Before you test an alternator, check to see if the alternator pulley turns easily. While you do so, listen for bearing noises. Make sure the pulley isn't rubbing. When you check the pulley, install the alternator in the vise. Be sure the pulley is aligned with the belt before you tighten the vise. After tightening the vise, check to see if the belt guard is in position. Hooking up the test leads to an alternator isn't complicated. However, there are so many makes and models of alternators that hookup can sometimes be confusing. That's why you should always use this quick connection charts book each time you hook up and test an alternator. Before we start hooking up the leads on this alternator, let's get a little more familiar with the test leads on the mini tester. The white or yellow lead is the stator lead. It's connected to the stator terminal on alternators equipped with a stator terminal. The gray terminal is the RF plug. It's used to test some alternators. This green terminal is the field lead. The alligator clamp is always used as a ground connection to the alternator. This square plastic terminal is called a Delcatron plug. It's used for testing several GM alternators with internal regulators. Finally, this red terminal is the battery lead. It's usually connected to the alternator output terminal. Now let's open the Quick Connection Charts book to the index section and find out how to hook up this Ford alternator. This is the section that describes how to hook up the test leads to this alternator. It says that the field lead goes to the field terminal of the alternator, the stator lead to the stator terminal, and the battery lead to the battery terminal. That seems easy. Let's try hooking the alternator to the mini tester. Here's the green lead. Connect it to the field terminal. The white or yellow lead goes to the stator terminal. Hook the red to the output terminal. That's the battery terminal. Finally, connect the alligator clamp to the alternator ground or vise block. There, that should do it. Now take a look at the book again. Section 4 of the book shows the program selection. The correct selection is indicated by the large black dot, Alt, A-type, neg, and 12 volt. Return to the tester and set the program switches according to the book. When testing alternators, set the alternator generator switch to Alt. Some alternators can be tested with this switch in either the A or B position. However, it's always best to follow the directions in the Quick Connection chart. So let's switch it to the A position. This switch indicates negative or positive ground. Since the alternator we are testing is negative ground, move this switch to the negative position. The 6-volt, 12-volt switch should be in the 12-volt position because we are testing a 12-volt alternator. Before we go any further, we'd better take another look at the Quick Connection Charts book. According to this, the alternator should be rotated in a clockwise direction during the test. Section 6 also mentions that the test position is for just an alternator, not an alternator with an internal regulator. Now we're ready to test the alternator. Turn the motor switch on and allow the motor to come up to full speed. Actually, the direction of the motor, clockwise or counterclockwise, is only important when testing generators. You really don't see many of them around anymore. Press this load switch to put a load on the alternator and test its performance. Since this alternator uses an external regulator, move the load switch to the external alternator generator position. If the alternator is operating properly, the reading on the voltage output meter should be within the specifications listed in the quick connection specification data form. Also, check the load light, stator relay light, diode trio light, and the alternator defective light. Compare the light indications with those listed in the quick connection specification data form. Section 7 in the quick connection charts book shows what the voltmeter reading should be during the test. Also, notice that Section 8 shows which indicator lights should be on during the test. If these indicator lights don't agree with the specifications during the test, the alternator isn't working properly. That's all there is to it. The test doesn't take very long, and hookup is easy, especially with the aid of this quick connection book. So keep the book near the tester where it'll be available when a customer wants a starter or an alternator tested. And remember, always follow the manufacturer's recommended procedures when testing any component. Above all, read the operation instructions of the test equipment. Follow all safety precautions when using test equipment. We've covered a lot of material in this program. By now, you should have a pretty good idea of how to test components and use the test results to help customers solve their problems and sell more parts and service. Remember, read the tester's operating instructions and take the time to practice testing a few alternators and starter motors. Then you'll be confident when your customers need help. As a parts person, you must also be knowledgeable and confident about the products you sell to your customers. Purchasing remanufactured components like these AC Delco alternators and starters is a logical choice for many car owners, especially if durability and like-new performance is expected. That's because AC Delco remans meet original equipment type specifications. Each AC Delco reman is built with quality products using the latest materials and design technology. Delco is well known with over 20 years of experience in remanufacturing know-how and almost 90 years experience in design and manufacturing of electrical systems. We're going to show you what goes into an AC Delco reman so that you'll have the knowledge to know that you're selling the best and why Delco says that its products are remanufactured to last. When an alternator core is returned from the field, it is disassembled into the major parts and subassemblies you see here. Each of these parts is thoroughly cleaned and tested. Any part that does not meet original manufacturer's specifications is remanufactured or replaced. This stator, for example, will be cleaned to remove dirt and grease. Then it's visually inspected. Misshapen stators are scrapped at the outset. An electrical test is performed to check for shorts, grounds, and opens. The stators are then lacquered for appearance and insulation. This rotor will be cleaned and electrically checked for shorts, grounds, opens, and a high-end output test performed to check its electrical integrity. The slip rings will be sanded. If they are deeply grooved, they will be turned on a lathe. If the resulting diameter is too small, the slip rings are scrapped. Rotor shafts are inspected to assure proper smoothness for quiet bearing operation. If required, acceptable rotors are lacquered for appearance and insulation. Only GM OE type regulators are used in AC Delco remanufactured alternators. All others are scrapped. The regulators are bead blasted for appearance and to clean the terminals. Regulators are 100% tested for operation and voltage setting. On reused regulators, a rust-preventive lubricant is applied for corrosion protection. Diode trios are checked 100% for voltage drop and current leakage. Those that fail the test are scrapped. Rectifier bridges are bead blasted to remove grease and corrosion, clean the threads, and improve appearance. Bridges are checked for full rectification and open and shorted diodes. This assures proper current output. All frames are cleaned to remove grease and dirt. A visual inspection is performed and any cracked or broken frame is discarded. Mounting holes are gauged and all new bolts and washers are used. Bearings are demagnetized, ultrasonically cleaned, and sprayed with rust-preventive oil. They are then spun in an environmentally controlled atmosphere to check for noise level. Bearings are tested so extensively because they are a critical part of the operation of the alternator. The bearing hole is checked to make sure it is in spec. All seals are replaced. Bearing retainer holes are checked to be sure they are open. Spacers, nuts and washers, and the pulley are cleaned and replated for corrosion protection and appearance. Fans are visually inspected for bent blades and replated. All frames are cleaned to remove dirt and grease. Brush holders are bead blasted and visually inspected and scrapped if defective. Electrical connections are cleaned. Springs, brushes, brush holder mounting hardware, roller bearings, and insulators are 100% new. The remanufactured and new parts are shipped to final assembly for building. This is the result. But before it leaves our plant, it must undergo yet another test, the final inspection. Each unit is tested for proper electrical current output at various speeds, turn on at 200 RPM, and rated output at 7,000 RPM. The voltage regulator set point is checked, and diode operation is tested with an oscilloscope. The alternator is then checked for quietness of operation. Now that you know the quality and effort that goes into a Delco reman, it's easy to understand why Delco says that they are remanufactured to last. It's important to know that this same kind of quality and effort goes into every product that AC Delco manufactures. In addition, any improvements made in the OE design are incorporated into the reman units. The result is often a product more up to date than the unit traded in. However, to ensure long life and total customer satisfaction, remind your customers to check the vehicle's electrical system. It's surprising how often the battery, cables, and belts are overlooked. That's why AC Delco has included this reminder on the side of the box. So the next time you talk to a Western Auto customer, remember, you have a lot to offer. That's because Western Auto sells high-quality AC Delco batteries and electrical components. Plus, Western Auto has the Mini Tune Tester and the SBT Tester to ensure customer satisfaction. And don't forget, Western Auto Service Department is equipped with the latest test equipment trained technicians. With Western Auto's dedication to satisfying the needs of the customer and AC Delco's reputation for quality and reliability, customers can expect a lot when they come to Western Auto. And you have a lot to give.